So the alleged killer that allegedly assassinated the CEO of the UnitedHealthCare insurance company has been caught and detained in custody at this present moment. But before I go into details about this matter, I first want to clarify that I am not a Democrat and I am not a Republican. I stand neutral when it comes to political parties and politics in general. And yes, I do firmly believe that both the government and medical industry, such as Big Pharma, are corrupt and are on the same playing fields as the drug cartel. To put it simply, they are just the drug cartel dressed in expensive suits. And yes, I will explain my logic and synopsis of my reasonings behind that later in this video. But before I continue on with that matter or with this story in general, I encourage you to personally research and read why I am neutral when it comes to politics or government in general. And to do that, you can go to www.jw.org and search for the topics regarding neutrality or any other subjects that you might be interested in researching as well. And just research those things in the search engine on that website. It will bring up both short videos and publications in regards to those topics and subjects. And lastly, I just want to also make it abundantly clear that despite me believing that yes, the victim of this heinous crime was truly despicable for the unethical and corrupt things that he was doing to the common middle and lower class people, his life still did not deserve to be taken by the hands of another imperfect and sinful human being either. I do not believe that murder is ever justifiable or okay, despite the situation or circumstances. And we should leave justice in the hands and authority of God to be ordered in due time. With all of that said, let's go ahead and get into this video.
So you could see how he approaches Thompson from the back. Before then, where we freeze the video, he fires those shots at Thompson. And then, of course, follow the path of that gunman. As we already have learned, he flees from the scene, going down a back alley behind a theater that's across the street from the hotel where we are, and then hops on a bike where they basically lose his trail in Central Park.
But anyways, back to our timeline. So we've got Brian Thompson, and he normally is accompanied by his in-house security, which is paid for as a part of the job by UnitedHealthCare. Like that's what the executives get as a part of their package, around the clock security. So for whatever reason, on this particular day, his in-house security was not with him that morning, despite the fact that they did travel with him. But for whatever reason, and that has not been made clear yet, they were not with him in the morning when he was made to be hosting and speaking at this conference to talk about how much more money they were going to make scamming the public. He was supposed to begin his remarks at 8 o'clock a.m. And at 6:45 a.m., absent his security detail, Brian emerges from that Hilton Hotel in Midtown. And curiously, there's a killer lurking who seemed to know exactly which direction Brian would be emerging from. And he's just loitering nearby the exit. He then fires 3 times from behind, and we can't show you this video. I wish we could. I don't see why not. It's news. We could obviously say, but this is violent, but it's important for people to see this because Brian's walking away and he shoots at him, and then his gun gets jammed and he instantly unjams it and he shoots at him twice more. And at 6:48 a.m., the suspect was then seen riding an electric bike in Central Park. And that had been the last known sighting of the suspect. But we've since then learned from CNN that the alleged killer dropped a phone, dropped a bottle of water in an alleyway nearby. So that shooting took place at 6:45. By 7:12 a.m., Brian Thompson was pronounced dead at the hospital, according to the police. Obviously terrible, but then things get really crazy because authorities then found engravings on the bullets that were used by the assassin. And the words that were engraved onto these bullets were deny, depose, and defend. Words which are eerily similar to a 2010 book, which condemns the insurance business. And that book is entitled Delay, Deny, Defend. Subtitle, Why Insurance Companies Don't Pay Claims and What You Can Do About It. Okay, so that tells us this guy targeted him for a reason. He is correct that, yes, it is all fraudulent and we should change the system. But no, we don't just go murdering people. That's not the way that we do that, okay? Going back into our timeline, at 11:20 a.m., the New York PD released images that were taken at a hostel on the Upper West Side of an unmasked person of interest wanted for questioning in relation to the shooting. Now, this is funny because the backstory of this is at the hostel, despite the fact that this man wore a mask the entire time, he took down his mask to flirt with the front desk lady. I think she said, let me see your face. And he smiled. And so it's just like interesting that is how we were able to get this image, is because he was flirting with a front desk lady or she was flirting with him, whatever it is. Anyway, so they say this is the guy that we're looking for. And the officials began extensively canvassing all of the video nearby, again, led them to that hostel in Upper Manhattan. Anyways, I'm going to pause there because now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the alleged killer, I will say. Okay, again, we're saying allegedly. Obviously, we believe in due process. He hasn't gone through due process at all. What we did not expect was for this individual to be an Ivy League graduate. But the would-be assassin, the alleged assassin, is a young man named Luigi Mangione, okay? Luigi, let me tell you a little bit about this guy that you're looking up on the screen right now. He is 26 years old. He bills himself as anti-capitalist. He's an Ivy League graduate. He was taken into custody. Here is the story of how. But after all of that, making it out of New York City, able to assassinate someone, and then this manhunt ensues. You want to know what broke him? He needed to get something from McDonald's. He was hungry, and he went to McDonald's. An employee which is 100 miles east in Pennsylvania. He was in a town called Altoona. An employee recognized him. Just a McDonald's employee was like, I recognize this person and I'm going to phone this in. Okay. What is being reported thus far is that he had a 3D printed ghost gun similar to the one that was used on Wednesday morning against Brian Thompson. So they were able to find that on him, along with a gun silencer, plus a manifesto and 4 fake IDs. And as I said, he was found with that gun and also wearing the clothes that match the description of the suspect. And that is why she phoned it in.
Start with the Fox News alert. You've been seeing this video for over a week. The suspect in the murder of the UnitedHealthCare CEO, Brian Thompson, has now been officially charged.
So the suspected killer remains behind bars in Pennsylvania this morning. Luigi Mangione, on your left here, is now charged in the killing of UnitedHealthCare CEO Brian Thompson 6 days ago in Midtown Manhattan. The suspect now faces several charges. So in New York, he's been charged with second-degree murder, along with 3 other gun-related charges. And in Pennsylvania, he faces 5 more charges, including forgery, carrying a gun without a license, and lying about his identity to officers. His arrest came after a tip from a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. Authorities say the 26-year-old was carrying a gun believed to be the one used to shoot Thompson. Mangione also had clothing and a mask similar to those worn by the shooter when police arrested him Monday, as well as writings suggesting ill will toward corporate America.
Who is this guy? He's from a prominent Italian-American family in Maryland. His grandparents started a few country clubs. They also own some healthcare facilities and real estate companies. And according to friends in Hawaii, he wanted to distance himself from this wealthy life. Now, then his school, he went to the Gilman School, which is in Baltimore. Now, that is a very prominent school. It's all boys. He was there from 6th grade until graduation. He graduated in 2016. It costs about $40,000 a year to send your children there. His friends called him likable, athletic, studious, on the quiet side, had an interest in technology and robotics, and he was the valedictorian of his high school. Then he goes on to have an Ivy League education, goes to UPenn with a bachelor's and a master's degree, graduated 4 years ago in 2020 with a computer science degree, and he minored in mathematics. He was a member of the Phi Kappa Psi fraternity. Then he goes to Hawaii. That was his last place of residence, and people that he lived with in the surf break co-living community said he was in chronic back pain constantly. He's been estranged from some of those friends. Apparently, he left like 2 years ago. That was the last time he had that address. But then he went back. I'm reading in some of the reports, started a book club. Many people left that book club because they didn't agree with some of the book choices. The NYPD is saying his writings expressed anger at corporate America. There's a 3-page manifesto where he was complaining about the healthcare industry. He said, "These parasites had it coming. I do apologize for any strife and trauma, but it had to be done." So he's an anti-capitalist. He had some leanings on his Facebook page or some of his social media that leads us to believe that.
Apparently, when he was apprehended at the McDonald's, he was found with $8,000 in cash, $2,000 in foreign currency. And the suspect said about that, "I don't know where that money came from. It must have been planted. I don't have that kind of cash." And so you mentioned a moment ago that his X account features an x-ray of somebody who's had back fusion surgery. And you mentioned how when he lived in Hawaii, one of the managers there said that chronic back pain impacted everything in his life. He says, including his ability to have a romantic life or enjoy surfing. And what's interesting is when you think about, and you know, the manifesto talks about greed and in the healthcare industry, that guy's 26 years old. When you are 26 years old, you are knocked off of your parents' health insurance in many cases. You can have your kids on it until 26. If he's been impacted back by that, was that part of it? And when you, apparently, according to the cops here in New York, when you read his 3-page note that he was found with, and it was handwritten because he didn't want a digital trail, it echoes what was found on those 3 gun casings, you know, about Deny and all that other stuff. And it looks literally like he was caught red-handed. He had the gun, he had the note, he had the fake ID, and he's got the face.
Well, the big thing now is going to be, since this was done in Manhattan, it will be Alvin Bragg's case to try between the court. The cops that I speak to want the feds to step in. Now, of course, in New York State, there is no death penalty. But assuming that the trial starts to begin, it will be back in the Trump administration, and they will have the death penalty back on the table. Currently, the feds have removed the death penalty under the Biden administration. Yeah. But if the Southern District of New York gets the case and Pam Bondi is the attorney general, the death penalty will be back in play.
Now, as seen in the previous clips that I just showed you from the sources such as the YouTube video from the Candace Owens channel and the Fox News channel, it suggests that this alleged vigilante killer allegedly and possibly targeted and ultimately assassinated the victim due to suspected medical claims relating to his chronic back pain, possibly being denied by the health insurance company. That is being speculated but not confirmed as factual at this moment. But if that is indeed factual, it is easy for the common middle and lower class people of America to relate and sympathize with, because unfortunately what happens when it comes to the dynamic between insurance companies and the insured, these billion-dollar companies are quick to take money from you by increasing premiums and incorporating all sorts of fees, but they are slow to actually help the insured when they need it the most. In fact, the insurance companies often find loopholes that will find the insured financially responsible for major costs for medication and procedures that they need. And what ends up happening is the insurance company deems certain prospects as high-cost cases and will just automatically deny the claims request. So essentially, they are basically wrongfully and legally robbing you of your money, because essentially the common people are paying all of this money monthly, quarterly, and annually to hopefully get financial support from these companies and backing to prepare for the just-in-case situations and circumstances that might happen. But when those unfortunate times arise, the insurance companies are no help at all, and instead they leave the insured party to financially fend for themselves. And when those insured parties can't afford the procedures or medications that they need, they go without, and then they end up in worse conditions and inevitably prematurely dying in most cases because of the lack of financial support. And this constant injustice in turn causes a massive, overwhelming amount of harbored anger, rage, sadness, and heartbreak, and leaves people feeling unheard, uncared for, helpless, and defeated. So I definitely understand how the mass public of common middle and lower class people can relate to this young man. However, it is still never right or justifiable or okay to murder someone and take their life. Now, to go even further into my beliefs about the statement I made earlier in this video about believing that the government and the medical industry, such as Big Pharma, are nothing but the drug cartel dressed in expensive suits, and essentially why you cannot put your trust and faith into the government or medical industry, this is my reasoning behind that train of thought and opinion. But before I get into that, I want to talk briefly about how the UnitedHealthCare CEO was under investigation by the Department of Justice for insider trading. Now, insider trading is the illegal act of buying or selling a company's securities based on material, non-public information about the company, and insider trading occurs when someone with access to non-public information about a company uses that information to make a profit in the stock market. And the reason why it's illegal is because it can give investors an unfair advantage over others who don't have access to that same information. Now, on February 16, 2024, Thompson reviewed stock options and sold shares worth $15.1 million just days before the Department of Justice announced its investigation into UnitedHealthCare's accusations, and the investigation focused on whether these deals unlawfully consolidated the company's market dominance, potentially violating antitrust laws. So to say the year 2024 has been quite turbulent for UnitedHealthCare is an understatement, as it experienced one of the largest healthcare data breaches in the U.S. history. In fact, this breach exposed sensitive data for 1/3 of the American population and forced the company to pay a ransom of $22 million to hackers, as reported by the New York Post. Now, Crane's New York Business reported that Thompson's stock sales were his first since he became CEO of the insurance division in 2021, and the timing of these transactions, along with the similar sales by other executives totaling a whopping $101.5 million, is attracting scrutiny. The company also suffered a financial fallout of $705 million from the data breach, leading it to be facing more significant challenges along with Thompson's sudden death. Now, a couple of good logical questions are being asked, such as, could Brian Thompson's murder have been a covert CIA-style assassination aimed at shielding Nancy Pelosi from prosecution over alleged insider trading? And also, could this crime mark a disturbing revelation in modern assassination techniques while tying into a Washington stock scandal likely to be conveniently swept under the rug? Now, some people are saying that the public narrative says brazen attack, and then others are saying, but let's be honest, this wasn't some mugging gone wrong or petty grudge. Thompson was a man who allegedly knew too much and was embroiled in an ongoing DOJ investigation that threatened to append powerful interests in Washington and beyond. And people are saying that he was a domino, and his death keeps the others standing for now, preventing the other dominoes from falling along with him. For now. Brian Thompson's murder has sparked widespread speculation about possible narratives, particularly regarding his entanglement in a Department of Justice investigation. As the CEO of UnitedHealthCare, Thompson was reportedly under scrutiny for fraud, insider trading, and antitrust violations. And the timing of his death, paired with whispers that he might have been preparing to cooperate with authorities in exchange for a plea deal, has fueled theories of a deeper conspiracy. Some point to congressional connections as a potential factor, notably former Speaker Nancy Pelosi's controversial purchase of Palo Alto shares in February 2024, just before UnitedHealthCare's security breach raised eyebrows. Pelosi has long been linked to UnitedHealthCare lobbyists, and her financial moves suggest intimate knowledge of the company's dealings. Experts argue that such a high-profile attack suggests a message, possibly to silence Thompson before he could disclose damning evidence. With UnitedHealthCare's monopolistic practice under investigation and its ties to congressional favors under scrutiny, his death might be more than a murder. It could be a calculated move to protect entrenched interests. In a politically charged climate, with former President Trump returning to prominence, some speculate that this may be the start of a larger purge. If Thompson's death is indeed tied to his knowledge and potential cooperation, it may possibly foreshadow more dramatic events in the corridors of power.
Over the course of your career, has your husband ever made a stock purchase or sale based on information he received from you?
No, absolutely not. Okay, thank you.
Members of Congress and their spouses be banned from trading individual stocks while serving in Congress?
No, I don't know to the second one.
Why should they be banned?
Because this is a free market, and people, we are a free market economy. They should be able to participate in that.
What stocks should I buy? Nancy, you're the greatest options trader of all time. I just want to know what stocks I should buy.
Well, that's a valid question for the former Speaker of the House, whose stock portfolio tends to beat the S&P 500 every year. And alas, comedian Alex Stringer was quickly escorted out of the room when he attempted to ask that question.
My, what a coincidence. Nancy Pelosi's husband sold over $500,000 worth of Visa stock. just weeks before the DOJ's antitrust lawsuit against that company, according to the New York Post. In case you missed it, the Justice Department has sued Visa on Tuesday, accusing the company of illegally monopolizing the debit card market and driving up prices for businesses and consumers. The suit alleges Visa handles more than 60% of debit card transactions, rakes in over $7 billion in annual processing fees. The suit further alleges that Visa used its market power to stifle competition and keep fees high. Statement Attorney General Merrick Garland said, quote, "We allege that Visa has unlawfully amassed the power to extract fees that far exceed what it could charge in a competitive market. Merchants and banks pass along those costs to consumers, either by raising prices or reducing the quality of service. As a result, Visa's unlawful conduct affects not just the price of one thing, but the price of nearly everything." Meanwhile, Paul Pelosi, the former House Speaker's husband, sold 2,000 shares worth of Visa between $500,000 and $1 million. That's according to a July 3rd congressional filing. At the time Pelosi sold his stock, there was no public indication that an antitrust lawsuit against Visa was imminent. A spokesperson for Representative Pelosi told the Post, quote, "Speaker Pelosi does not own any stocks, and she has no prior or subsequent involvement in any transactions." Right? It's not her. Just the husband, who has all sorts of stocks in lots of company. Famously, they had stock in Facebook as well. So it's possible this is all above board and is a coincidence and has nothing to do with this forthcoming investigation. But a lot of people are going to have a hard time believing that.
That's done by members of Congress. The amount of money that they make when they know decisions that are going to be signed and passed. They know laws that are going to be put into place. They know, like there was one recently that we were talking about Nancy Pelosi and the amount of money she invested in Tesla right before Biden signed this EV bill, electric vehicle bill. Well, insider trading is against the law.
Yeah.
How is that not insider trading?
Right.
If you know that someone's going to sign a bill and that bill is going to be a massive boost to the electrical vehicle industry, just as an example, and you know that bill's going to be signed, so right before that bill's signed, you buy a load of stock in electrical vehicles, and then the next day or whenever it was, that bill gets passed, and then that stock goes up, and you make a ton of money. How is that not illegal?
This is the regulator. This is the entity with the monopoly on the legitimate use of force, the government, which gets to set the rules, and they have information. So they're outside the system, putting the rules in place for the system. Them having, secret hidden information is far worse than people inside the system having some kind of information about it. I would more want to have what they're doing be illegal than insider trading.
Let's look at why UnitedHealthCare was under investigation by the U.S. Senate. According to the New York Times, last fall, the majority staff of a Senate panel released a scathing report of insurers' refusal to pay for care for older people who have suffered falls or strokes. And in that report, UnitedHealthCare in particular was cited for a surge in denials for what is called post-acute care. Under United's system of prior authorization, the report found, the denial rate for post-acute care increased to 22.7% in 2022 from 10.9% in 2020. And then here's a striking little coincidence. According to the Times, CEO Brian Thompson had been chief executive of the insurance division since 2021, overseeing a period of substantial profits. The division reported $281 billion in revenues last year. So in other words, Brian Thompson climbed the ladder of success at UnitedHealthCare by institutionalizing a rising rate of denial of coverage. So people did not get the coverage or medical care they needed, but at least UnitedHealthCare made a ton of money. Denial of coverage is not even the real scandal here. It turns out that Brian Thompson and UnitedHealthCare were being investigated by the Biden Department of Justice for violating antitrust laws. And yeah, that's something that's going to go out the window once the Trump administration takes over. There will be no more antitrust. But Biden's Justice Department was committed to antitrust enforcement. And so they went after UnitedHealthCare and others. So completely separate From the Senate investigations into denial of care, the Justice Department was investigating UnitedHealthCare for breaking the law. And of course, when it comes to multi-billion-dollar corporations, the investigation itself led to more fraud. It turns out that UnitedHealthCare was being sued for not disclosing the investigation to its very own investors. They did not find out about the investigation until the media reported on it. And by then, it was too late. Investors lost millions of dollars. And still, that's not the end of the story. Because what was CEO Brian Thompson doing while covering up the investigation to his own investors? That's right. He and others in corporate leadership were selling all their shares. So Brian Thompson made millions of dollars selling his corporate stock. So yep, while other people are losing their money, Brian Thompson was actually making millions. Right now, the New York Times is breaking the story that bullet casings discovered at the site of yesterday's shootings appear to have the words delay and deny etched on them. That is going to make it look like the shooter was a lone gunman bent on revenge against Brian Thompson and UnitedHealthCare. And that may very well be the case. But if you were a high-power investor with a complete lack of ethics and got screwed over by Brian Thompson and UnitedHealthCare, leaving behind fake clues like that would be the best way to throw an investigation off track. But the bigger question here is not who shot Brian Thompson. It's why does the U.S. government allow these for-profit healthcare companies to get away with murder?
So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and quickly close out the video, letting you guys see some of the things that will basically summarize and back and support my overall feelings, opinions, beliefs, and synopsis about this whole situation regarding government, insurance companies, and the medical industry such as Big Pharma.
Well, take a look at this. On February 21st, 2024, UnitedHealth discovered a cybersecurity breach. On the same day, Nancy Pelosi made her second purchase of call options in Palo Alto Networks, a cybersecurity company that was later chosen to investigate their breach. UnitedHealthCare CEO by a masked individual today in the middle of a federal investigation led by the U.S. Department of Justice. What a coincidence, right? There was a hearing that was coming up. He was going to testify in that hearing. And of course, now he's literally the fall guy.
Let me be very, very clear with you guys. And I don't know if I've made it clear already on this channel, but I am not someone who supports the system, bro. Because there are a lot of things that the system is done. It's literally made to design and control and construct an entire society. That's genuinely how I feel. And when it comes to things like this, it's like they're taking advantage of the fact that we just obey and that we just listen. The fact that you're not able to get healthcare with the person that you're paying insurance. They're taking your money but not giving you care. That's literally saying, give me your money, but you're not getting anything in return. And if you ask for it, we're just going to delay and delay and delay and deny and deny and deny. So I understand how so many people might be frustrated. People's parents might be suffering and not getting the care that they need. People's cousins, aunts, uncles are not getting the care that they need. It can drive someone to a boiling point where they do something like this. I completely understand it. I just don't think it's right. I just don't think it is right to unalive someone because of a situation like this, honestly speaking. And that's just me. I think that everything is corrected through God. I think everything has its own karma. I think that everything finds a way to balance itself out. That's just how I think.
But you know, this new government's policy, I really think it's going to work.
You're crazy. With their policies, we'll be bankrupt within 3 years.
But if it works, though, it's going to make people rich.
Those who are rich already. No, I'm fed up. They say the same thing.
We've invited a panel of experts to explore these issues. Namely, can the opposition party win? Will they keep their promises to lower income people? And what changes could we expect on required military service?
If put to the test, I do want to take my stand for Jehovah. But the outcome of all these things, can affect me now? My family? My goals? How can I stay neutral, even in my heart? John 17, verse 14. I have given your word to them, but the world has hated them, because they are no part of the world, just as I am no part of the world. I do not request that you take them out of the world, but that you watch over them because of the wicked one. They are no part of the world, just as I am no part of the world. Sanctify them by means of the truth. Your word is truth. Just as you sent me into the world, I also sent them into the world. And I am sanctifying myself in their behalf, so that they also may be sanctified by means of truth. No part of the world, like Jesus, both in thought and action.
That in the last days, government would be the burning issue among mankind, and that people would feel pressured to take sides. The question each of us needs to ask himself is, how do I respond when people debate solutions to serious injustices? As Christians, we're most interested in the example of Christ. Jesus didn't take sides. He refused to become a world ruler, a national leader, or a political activist. Did that mean that Jesus didn't care, that he had no opinion? To the contrary, Jesus cared more deeply than we can fathom. And by treating people fairly, Jesus promoted justice at the most fundamental level. Still, his principal focus was on teaching people about the kingdom of God, which would eliminate injustice for all time. Those who love God take the side of Jesus, whom Jehovah has appointed as king.